Here's everything you missed in WandaVision Episode 6. Holy pickled herring, Marvel fans, what an episode of WandaVision that was! After the shocking finale of Episode 5, WandaVision Episode 6, titled All New Halloween Spooktacular, kept the train rolling, with even more fodder for our wild fan theories, chilling revelations, and one heck of an homage to early 2000 sitcoms like Malcolm in the Middle. Now, we have a ton of stuff to talk about, including all manner of Easter eggs, comic book references, deep cuts, and so much more. As always, if you prefer to read all about it, Rosie Knight has you covered on Nerdist.com, which I will link to in the description below. But if you haven't seen WandaVision Episode 6 yet, and you're about to complain that we're gonna spoil it for you, then what are you doing here? Consider this your first and last spoiler warning. If that applies to you, make like Pietro and find the nearest exit. Run like your life depends on it. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? WandaVision Episode 6 starts with an homage to Malcolm in the Middle's opening with a frenzied camcorder intro and some seriously creepy lyrics that summarize just how uncomfortable things are inside the bubble. Don't try to fight the chaos. Don't question what you've done. Words to live by, I guess. Even Wanda's musical subconscious seems to be gaslighting both her and everyone starring in this Stepford Wives-worthy sitcom. But as this episode will make us wonder time and time again, is all of this solely Wanda's doing, or is there another unseen force behind the scenes? But more Fisto on that in just a little bit. The Malcolm in the Middle homage continues with Billy breaking the fourth wall and speaking directly to the camera. This is a Halloween episode, and his costume is that of Wiccan, his superhero alter ego from the comics. Tommy isn't wearing a costume at first, just the colors of his comic book costume, but he is rocking a Minecraft headband when we get a hint of his super speed during a flashback of the twins playing Dance Dance Revolution. Now, they are playing an incredibly fast version of Smile.DK's Butterfly. So fast, in fact, that Billy actually goes flying, or, I don't know, maybe it's just a Dorkosaurus Rex after all.
Not a real dinosaur.
Last week's episode ended with the shocking return of Wanda's brother Pietro Maximoff, who died during the Battle of Sokovia in Avengers Age of Ultron, and seeing him knock at her door was a surprise not just because he died, but because he's actually played by Evan Peters rather than Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Evan Peters played Pietro aka Peter Maximoff in the Fox X-Men movies, so maybe the multiverse is already here. Billy calls out how uncomfortable everything is, noting that his mom has been weird since Uncle Pietro got here. And, weirdly enough, Pietro notices this as well. It's our first indication that he is aware of exactly what's going on here. In classic sitcom fashion, though, Pietro is the fun uncle, or the funkle, if you nasty. He introduces unexpected chaos and super speed to the Maximoff household. His memories of their youth in Sokovia as well seem to be different from those of Wanda's, mostly involving way more herring as Halloween candy.
That's not exactly how I remember it.
Now, maybe that's because he's not the Pietro she knows, rather he's been pulled in from the multiverse and those are his memories from another reality, mixing with the Pietro that Wanda knows from this reality. And when Wanda pushes back on this, he gets meta and dodges the question, telling her,
"You probably suppressed a lot of the trauma."
Besides, the opening credits did tell us Pietro Maximoff is playing himself, so we should probably just take that at face value, right? For Halloween, Wanda is dressed as a Sokovian fortune teller, which is really her classic comic book costume right down to the headpiece. Meanwhile, the Vision kinda looks like he fell out of a laundry basket, but his costume as well is an homage to his classic comic book look. It even has a little Mind Stone right there for a little MCU flair. You just love to see it. Moving on from there, when Pietro and the kids shotgun soda, my stomach hurts thinking about that, they're drinking Kane Cola, a reference to WandaVision unit production manager Mary Kane. After last week's monumental blow-up between the Vision and Wanda in their living room, we get another uncomfortable moment because Vision remarks that there was no other clothing in his closet apart from his Halloween costume. And he also reveals that he's going to miss trick-or-treating with the kids, which prompts Wanda to almost slip up and say, "No, that's not what you're supposed to do." But she catches herself at the last second. As Vision becomes more and more awakened to the artificial reality of Westview, he is no longer following Wanda's scripts to the letter. And that is deeply troubling to Wanda and has dire consequences for Vision and basically everyone in Westview, as we see later in the episode. Moving on, we get an homage to Quicksilver's classic comic book look right down to the spiky hair as Pietro and Tommy rock matching outfits. Outside the bubble, things are extremely tense at the sword base. We see technicians in full hazmat gear carrying that vintage Stark Industries drone that Hayward used to try and bomb Wanda with last episode, and it's still crackling with red hex energy. And while it's a brand new day inside of Westview, very little time has passed outside of Westview, it seems, so we have some time dilation going on, or maybe Wanda's just getting really good with studio lighting. That said, Hayward wants to take Wanda out once and for all, but Monica raises an excellent point. They have no idea what happens if Wanda dies. Now, they say you should never wake up someone who's sleepwalking, and I have to imagine that extends to people being used as living beef puppets in Wanda's spec scripts as well. Monica believes that Wanda is also the solution to undoing the anomaly, but for the time being, the fact remains that Wanda is a threat. Hayward makes a cutting remark about Monica, though, and her history with Carol Danvers. That may just be a reference to the first Captain Marvel, but based on Monica's reaction to Captain Marvel's name in episode 5, it feels like something major happened between them, maybe in Captain Marvel 2. Maybe it's as simple as the fact that Carol Danvers wasn't there for Monica's mom Maria while she was sick with cancer. Or maybe it's far darker, something involved with Sword, outer space, and Carol, which led to Maria getting cancer in the first place. Only time will tell. And while Hayward can border on comedically antagonistic, but he does bring up an interesting perspective that people who were snapped out of existence in the blip have no idea what it was like for everyone left behind. The people who had to keep the world in one piece for 5 brutal years of the snapping's aftermath. And much like in episode 4 when we saw Monica get undusted in her mom's old hospital room, Marvel is slowly painting this grander portrait of the sheer horror of exactly what happened in Infinity War and Endgame. Hayward does, though, tip his hand as not the big bad guy, but definitely a bad guy with an agenda that he'll enforce at any cost when he kicks Jimmy, Darcy, and Monica off the mission and has them escorted off the base. Fortunately, though, Jimmy shows off a different kind of sleight of hand when he immediately sucker punches one of the guards, and then he and Monica beat the ever-loving shit out of their would-be jailers.
Why didn't anyone tell me the plan?
Inside of Westview, though, there's significantly less punching. The entire town is out and about celebrating Halloween, and for the first time in the entire series, there are other children in town.
Boys and children.
Huh, guess that fundraiser must have really paid off. Don't worry though, because Pietro calls out exactly how weird it is later on in the episode, but more on that in just a bit. For now though, he tells Billy and Tommy to unleash Hell Demon Spawn, which sadly is not the dead giveaway we were hoping that he's secretly Mephisto. It's just a cool thing for a fun uncle to say, and maybe a reference to the fact that in the comics, Billy and Tommy are actually formed from fragments of the demon Mephisto's soul. Pietro is consistently able to see through Wanda's ruses. When she tries to poke holes in his story, he calls her out for testing him. He even acknowledges that he doesn't look like his old self, and he compliments Wanda on a job well done, saying that if he found Shangri-La, he wouldn't want to be reminded of the past either. Fun fact, Shangri-La isn't just a term for paradise, it actually exists in the Marvel Universe, and in Marvel Mystery Comics number 45, there's a story called The Vision Secret about a group of Japanese operatives who discover the hidden city of Shangri-La, which contains the secret of life and death. And it's ruled over by the Vision. But not the Vision you might be thinking of. This was a Golden Age version of the Vision, also known as Arcus. He's a character from another dimension called Smoke World who eventually came to Earth to fight alongside the invaders during World War II. According to back issue number 45, when it came time to introduce a new character to the Avengers, writer Roy Thomas wanted to use the Arcus version of the Vision, but Stan Lee said no. He wanted it to be an android. So Thomas then adapted some elements of the Golden Age Vision's look and abilities, and the Vision we know and love was born. Anyway, I know that's a lot of backstory for what's ultimately a throwaway line, but then again, they do say Kick-Ass not once but twice, which is almost definitely a meta-reference to the movie Kick-Ass, which stars not one but 2 Quicksilvers, Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson, so it's all connected.
Whoa.
We get yet another clue that at least some of the citizens of Westview are fully aware of what's being done to them and are playing along because Herb asks Wanda if she wants anything changed when she realizes that Vision isn't doing what he said he'd be doing. Vision sees a woman basically frozen in this living GIF animation hanging a Halloween decoration but never quite completing it. A single tear rolls down her cheek in a truly haunting reveal that Wanda's not even giving full false autonomy to all of Westview's characters. And that brings us to maybe the creepiest commercial to date, one for Yo Magic Yogurt. This claymation commercial is a perfect parody of late 90s and early 2000s commercials geared towards kids that featured extreme sports, anthropomorphic animals, and over-the-top catchphrases, except in those commercials, no kids starved to death, at least none that I recall. There are a few different ways one could interpret this commercial, but the key is the line "snacked on yo magic, bro," because that line, coupled with the imagery of the child wasting away and the red color of the yogurt, suggests that someone or something is feeding off of Wanda's power, using it to strengthen themselves while Wanda slowly comes undone. This parasitic figure would have to be a powerful entity, and it brings to mind previous big bad suspects like Mephisto, Nightmare, Chthon, and Dormammu. Another potential reading is that Wanda's magic is feeding off the people in Westview, keeping them trapped and slowly draining them of their life force so Wanda can live her idyllic existence with the Vision and her kids. Unfortunately, as we see later in the episode, this stipulation applies to the Vision as well. Or if we want to try and draw another parallel to Wanda's past, this could actually reference Hydra's experiments on Wanda and Pietro and how until Wanda learned to harness her own magic and break free, she wasn't able to find peace for herself. Regardless, it's profoundly creepy and it gives me this Mandela effect panic attack, because I can't figure out for the life of me if this is parodying a specific commercial from my youth, or if it's this strange amalgam of influences. So if you know, please tell me in the comments below because I'm dying here. Meanwhile, in the town square, we see the movie theater playing an awfully thematic double bill of The Parent Trap and The Incredibles, a movie about mischievous twins and a family of superheroes respectively, which is just, super on the nose, but hey, why not? Fitting for the Maximoffs. We then learn more about how Pietro came back to the land of the living. Well, sort of. He says that the details are fuzzy, sure. And then he remembers dying on the streets of Sokovia, okay, but he heard Wanda calling him and knew she needed him. This level of sort of clarity, coupled with his innate understanding of Wanda's story arc for him, has us wondering who Pietro truly is.
That's what you wanted, isn't it?
This moment of honesty, though, is interrupted by the emergence of Tommy's super speed abilities just like his uncle's, and we also learn the current barrier of Westview is somewhere called Ellis Avenue and the kids know never to cross it. Back at the sword base, though, Darcy hacks into Hayward's devices and discovers that he's tracking the Vision via Vibranium's decay signature, which is just incredibly bleak because we know that he's literally decaying vibranium at this point. Hayward likely wants to recover the synthezoid's body because, as we theorized, SWORD could be using it for their sentient weapon program, whatever they're building in episode 5, and if you want to know more about what that is and why it's probably Sentinels, check out our video from earlier this week. In a truly horrifying echo of the Yo Magic commercial, Jimmy asked whether the folks near the edge of town are actually alive or if they're dead. As it turns out, we're not sure. Wanda hasn't written routines for them to follow, so they're basically frozen in place like living tableaus in the background of Wanda's show, or Chrome tabs I opened 3 days ago and straight up forgot about. On the outskirts of town, Vision finds Agnes dressed like a witch because she might be Agatha Harkness, and she's frozen in place because she ventured too far away from Wanda and the action. Using the same ability he did to break Norm free, Vision wakes up Agnes from Wanda's spell, and she freaks out, asking Vision if he's here to help because he's one of the Avengers, and repeatedly questioning why he isn't dead. We also get confirmation that Agnes definitely isn't from Westview because
got lost.
In the town you grew up in?
How can you get lost in your own hometown? It's all deeply unsettling, not least of which because Vision has no idea who the Avengers are. I don't know, maybe those files didn't save when Thanos shut him down unexpectedly. Hayward, though, has a top-secret protocol called Cataract, which is a fascinating code name considering it's a condition that literally blurs your vision, kind of like how Vision can't remember what's going on. Either way, this can't be good news for our hero. Back at the sword base, Darcy accesses Hayward's hard drives, and we see a few different numbers and names fly across the screen. Now, 247 could be Avengers 247, a story called The Ties That Bind about Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Monica Rambeau learning about the Eternals. 123 seems like a stretch, but it could correspond to Avengers 123 about Wanda and the Vision. 113, as we mentioned last time, could reference Avengers 113, a story called Your Young Men Shall Slay Visions, or it could just be the CalArts meme, as literally all of you pointed out. 456 could reference Avengers Volume 3, Issue 40, the 456th issue of the series, which involves everyone from Wanda to Vision to Monica Rambeau fighting a robotic menace sent by Kang the Conqueror, who we'll soon meet in Ant-Man Quantumania. Now, one name in particular, James Gadd, is a nod to Jimmy Gadd, who works in post-production at Marvel Studios. Now, I'm losing my voice because there's so much to talk about. Monica also mentions her aerospace engineering friend again, and while many of you told me the Portuguese and Spanish subtitles last week used a feminine form of the word engineer, so it has to be Riri Williams, Monica says just gonna meet my guy over the ridge. So maybe she's using my guy in a gender-neutral sense, or maybe we're on the money with our guesses that it could be Reed Richards, Victor Von Doom, or another familiar face. And for more on that, check out our recent episode of Nerdist News. The bigger revelation, though, is that the energy from the Hex has rewritten Monica's cells on a molecular level twice. This explains her weird MRI scans last week and tees up Monica's comic book powers to manifest themselves in the MCU. The bigger question, though, is which of her approximately 30,000 superhero names will she roll with? My money is on Spectrum. Now, Pietro keeps poking holes in Wanda's perfect little world, asking her where she's been hiding the kids until now and talking about the ethical implications of what she's done. What's so creepy about this, though, is that Wanda doesn't even know how she managed to create the hex in the first place. She remembers feeling completely alone and empty, which has us thinking now more than ever that someone definitely took advantage of Wanda in her grief-stricken state. Because, much like when Wanda saw the Vision as his true corpse-like self in episode 4 after her Westview reality was punctured, she sees a very much dead, very bullet-riddled Pietro sitting next to her when she acknowledges that she's the one who made Westview what it is.
Are you okay?
So whether this is actually Pietro from a different universe or some fusion of that Pietro and the one that Wanda knew is still very much up for debate. Or it's a grim reminder of what happens if Wanda stops concentrating on maintaining her perfect world for even a moment. For example, in the comics, when she stops concentrating on maintaining her children, they disappear from existence. It's the kind of cruel trick a certain devilish villain would love to play. Now, having finally reached the edge of Westview, Vision makes the fateful decision to try and walk through the barrier and see what lies beyond. What follows is utterly horrifying. The barrier basically refuses to let Vision go. It's like he's walking through molasses, and it echoes a similar moment from Avengers number 233. So why doesn't Vision immediately turn back into a corpse? Well, that's because he's still within the hex's radius of effect. His life is bound to it, as Wanda tried to warn him. When Vision tries to leave, we see him get slowly ripped apart in a style that's reminiscent of Olivier Coipel's illustrations from House of M. It shows exactly what happens when Wanda's hex magic tears you asunder. Fortunately for Vision, his other son Billy develops superpowers of his own, telepathy and telekinesis. He can sense what's wrong with his dad. In the background, we see what looks like George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead playing on a big screen, but it's not actually that movie. It might be more fake footage shot specifically for this episode. More importantly, Pietro knows that Vision is dead and is somehow alive again, which Wanda doesn't appreciate. She blasts him with her hex energy, and he flies past a grave for Janelle Samelman, the first AD on WandaVision. What happens next should give you a major clue as to the direction of what's to come in not only WandaVision, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Wanda wields her power on a truly massive scale. She freezes everyone in Westview and rapidly expands the barrier of the Hex, subsuming everything in its path, including Darcy and countless members of S.W.O.R.D. They are consumed and their appearance is altered. While we don't know exactly what happens to Darcy just yet, S.W.O.R.D. gets turned into the circus and clowns they really are, while Hayward and a few agents LARP Call of Duty Warzone and escape by the skin of their teeth. So what does this mean? Well, it means that S.W.O.R.D. can't contain Wanda's reality bubble any longer. It could feasibly spread even further if she keeps pushing herself. However, with the return of people like Pietro and the appearance of Wanda's superpowered children, the laws of reality as we understand them are not being obeyed. For every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. Wanda is likely pulling in energy, material, and unknown forces from outside of our universe, reaching into the multiverse to reshape our world in her image. And that will have truly catastrophic consequences for not just Westview, but everyone on planet Earth if someone doesn't stop her. But who will stop Wanda? Will it be the Vision? Will it be whatever Hayward's Project Cataract is? Will it be Monica's engineer friend with the secret weapon? Once again, we're left with a ton of questions that we desperately hope are answered in the remaining 3 episodes of WandaVision. But anyway, there you have it, folks. That is everything we spotted in episode 6 of WandaVision. All new Halloween Spooktacular indeed. We will keep you up to date on everything WandaVision over on Nerdist.com, but in the meantime, tell us, what did you think of this episode? Did you spot anything that we missed?
Oh, that's interesting.
Let's discuss in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.